would probably associate the Tower of London with torture, mysterious deaths, and lifetime imprisonment on the whim of the king or queen. And look, you're not wrong, but a life as a prisoner in the tower could also have its moments. You might be tormented or even meet a grisly end, but if you were wealthy enough, you could also throw one hell of a party in between sessions on the rack. Today, we're exploring what it was like to be a prisoner in the Tower of London. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel, and why not leave a comment and let us know what topics you want to hear about next. Now, let's go to London. William the Conqueror built the Tower of London right after he conquered England in 1066. Because he was always off crushing it around England and Normandy, he needed to leave solid evidence in London that he was not to be messed with. So he built what would be later known as the White Tower. With stone walls 15 feet thick and 90 feet tall, it was clear that William and his Norman forces weren't here to play. And neither were later kings who decided to use the tower as a place to stash away enemies, criminals, and people who were just too irritating or inconvenient. It all started with a guy who was either super evil, or maybe he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. King Henry I became king in 1100 AD, and one of the first things he did was to throw the last king's top advisor, Ranulph Flambard, into prison. As one does with a Ranulph Flambard. The tower's first prisoner wasn't going to take his new status lying down, though. If Flambard couldn't live his notoriously flamboyant lifestyle in freedom, he would take it along with him to prison. Flambard brought all his servants along and had them order the best food, throwing lavish feasts as he tried to work all the angles to get out of jail. If only he had one of those Monopoly get-out-of-jail-free cards. Those wild parties could come in handy, though. When Ranulph Flambard couldn't get out of the Tower of London through legit means, he decided to take matters into his own hands. We're talking a good old-fashioned prison break. He had a rope hidden in a wine cask that was brought into the prison, because it didn't seem weird that a rich guy who would order up several casks of wine and have them shipped to him in jail. After whining and dining the guards as only a flamboyant big shot could, he lowered the rope out a window and climbed down to freedom. He fled the country and later reconciled with King Henry. He even got his old job back. Future prisoners tried their best to follow Ranulph's lead. If you're going to be imprisoned in the Tower of London, you might as well do it in style. A few hundred years later, William Maxwell added prostitutes to his lavish party diversion and managed to escape in drag. The moral of the story? If you want to get out, you got to fight for your right to party. As time passed, the Tower of London was used as a prison more often, even though it was also King Henry III's primary residence. You heard that correctly. Even English kings voluntarily lived in the tower sometimes. Henry imprisoned 100 Jewish people in the tower after they were accused of murdering a young boy, little St. Hugh of Lincoln, later hanging 18 of them. It turns out that being roommates of the king didn't inspire much mercy. Later, Edward I imprisoned almost 700 Jewish people in the Tower of London, this time for alleged coin clipping, which, if you didn't know, is shortchanging people by cutting or filing off small bits of precious metals from coins. Who knew? Just to let you know, there were several times when the Tower of London played a more positive role in Jewish history. In the 13th century, in the face of rising anti-Semitism, Jews took refuge from violence within the tower's walls. For the rulers of Britain, the Tower of London basically functioned like a secret inside pocket of the realm. Whether you wanted to protect something important or hide away something dangerous, the tower was there for you. Executing people accused of petty crimes they probably didn't commit wasn't the only scary thing that went down at the Tower of London. As time went on, torture became a fact of life. During the 1500s, religious conflict was always brewing. The Tower of London was the prison of choice for heretics who were tortured until they renounced either Catholicism or Protestantism, whichever one was out of favor that week. The Tower of London was stocked with all the latest gadgets and conveniences for torturing people. The most infamous piece of equipment nowadays is probably the rack. As the name implies, the rack is a literal rack that a prisoner's limbs would be attached to. When the machinery was pulled, the prisoner's body would be stretched out. This was no Pilates class, though. Joints were frequently dislocated, and some people's limbs were ripped from their sockets. The famous conspirator Guy Fawkes lasted only half an hour on the rack before giving up his real name to his torturers. Remember the 5th of November, and also that being tortured is no bueno. Torturers didn't confine themselves to physical punishment, though. Several prisoners at the Tower of London were tormented with visions of the horrors that awaited them, whether in the form of tours of the devices their captors would soon use on them, or simply by being allowed to go mad. It's a good thing the staff of the Tower of London didn't know how annoying the 1877 Cars for Kids jingle is.
K-A-R-S, Cars for Kids.
Other prisoners in the tower didn't have it so bad, though. Once you'd stocked your Tower of London prison cell with servants, fine wines, and the best food, the stage was set for the ultimate jailhouse privilege: conjugal visits. There's evidence that Sir Walter Raleigh fathered a child during one of his stays in the tower. The baby was born and christened in the Tower of London as well. I wonder if the guards gifted the baby with a little toy rack. One of the occupational hazards of being the servant of a political VIP was the possibility that if your boss was sent to the Tower of London, he or she would take you along. You might be a permanent guest of the King or Queen of England, or even be tortured or executed, God forbid if you have to do your own laundry. Not only did good old Ranulph Flambert bring his own servants to the tower, but Anne Boleyn and King John II of France also did as well. Scottish King John Balliol even brought his wife and his hunting dogs. Not really sure what there is to hunt in the Tower of London. In addition to access to servants and the right to get lucky, wealthy and socially prominent prisoners also could have pretty much anything they wanted to be brought into the tower. I would say anything except the tools to escape, but Ranulph Flambert showed us that you could even postmate yourself an escape ladder if you were crafty enough. Besides a rope cleverly hidden in a wine cask, wealthy prisoners in the Tower of London had access to the finest foods cooked to order, elaborate feasts, and almost any luxury you can imagine. While your wealth might get you access to creature comforts during your stay in the Tower of London, the torturers wouldn't let you forget the little things. Little things such as Little Ease, a 4-square-foot area where prisoners were kept intentionally uncomfortable. It's no wonder so many tower prisoners had mental breakdowns, what with being cooped up in a completely dark space where you couldn't sit, lie down, or stand up straight. After a few days of solitary confinement in Little Ease, the rack may have seemed like a massage table. Orange may be the new black in modern prisons, but in the 1500s, velvet and lace were the new orange. In addition to the best food cooked to order, fine wines, and the pleasure of your spouse's company, wealthy prisoners in the Tower of London were allowed to dress in the same swanky clothes they were used to on the outside. No narrow cots bolted to the walls either. Prisoners had their own furniture and all the comforts of home, if they could afford to have it brought in. Prisoners even had access to their favorite hobbies. Sir Walter Raleigh conducted chemistry experiments in the Tower, and Hugh Percy, the 9th Earl of Northumberland, played tennis and kept a fox as a pet. I hope the Earl and his fox weren't imprisoned at the same time the guy who brought his hunting dogs. The Scavenger's Daughter sounds like a fun guest to invite to your extravagant feast after you've spent time petting your tamed fox and playing a round of tennis. But the Scavenger's Daughter wasn't someone prisoners at the Tower of London wanted to meet. Also called Skeffington's irons, this was a torture device that did the opposite of the rack, compressing a prisoner until he or she relented. There aren't many references to this device being used often, but on the off chance that you made the Scavenger's Daughter's acquaintance, you probably wouldn't have a nice thing to say about her. If squeezing, stretching, and being cooped up in an impossibly small room weren't enough for a guest of the Tower of London, the staff torturers could always be relied on to go above and beyond, by which we mean they would hang tower prisoners above and beyond floor level using manacles and iron fetters. The prisoner would ascend a set of stairs and be attached to an iron bar by their arms or legs. The stairs would be removed, leaving the victim to hang in midair. Tall prisoners could even have the dirt floor dug away underneath them, if necessary. Despite the feasts and conjugal visits, being a prisoner in the Tower of London was a bit of a mixed bag. Wealthy people could eat, drink, and be merry in the style to which they were accustomed on the outside. On the other hand, the Scavenger's Daughter was always waiting to give you the ultimate hug. How would you handle prison life in the Tower of London? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.